If I do a long fast again, I'm probably going to do it 5-6 days instead of 7.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the sense of the mechanisms, right? So for people that aren't very familiar with these things, like
I just have to say though, you're much better at the actual mechanisms. I'm just a doer. I just do and learn from that.
Yeah, man. But it brings up the point from before. Like I've had so many issues with so many things. Like I had to learn. Like there wasn't any other. It wasn't any other way, like if I didn't learn how these things worked, I would have still been there, like not in a good state. So that's why, right, the mechanisms, but it's also interesting for the people to know. And I'm very curious, but thanks, bro. I appreciate it. But in any case, so mechanistically, especially as he's talking about like a mental clarity, right? It has its own type of hierarchy and parameters, right? So it's a combination of several things, like systemic inflammation going down, which opens up things in your brain, right? So systemic inflammation means stress. Stress means vasoconstriction, which is the scientific term for when blood vessels squeeze shut, right? So you can't use parts of your brain, like your neocortex, right? The thinking one, that you usually would, right? So systemic inflammation coming down means already more cognition as it is, right? But then you start going into ketosis. Ketones are cognitive enhancing. They're also anti-inflammatory, driving systemic inflammation down even more. And then there's this sympathetic activation from the nervous system, which is driving your cortisol and adrenaline up, because the signal to the organism is, hey, I don't have food, right? In the not so long ago, technically, in a lot of countries, that meant you need to go hunt.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're very used to like having this thing, but lest we forget, right? A lot of countries weren't there we're still there not that long ago. And we just came out of like a huge scarcity thing from the World War II, right? Our generation doesn't really know how good we have it. But if you listen to your grandparents sometime, right, especially in the middle of Europe, you just go like, all right, so you lived like on bread and potatoes most of the time, and maybe some vegetables is pretty hardcore. So the food scarcity thing, right, allows this hunter instinct, our survival instinct, to come to the surface, right? It makes you super focused. And Theo said something that I want to emphasize: aware. You become hyper aware because you need that to hunt. And that's something that a lot of people have experienced when we're doing this 3-day fast. And I keep reaching to that because we had so much information, right? I've noticed that, like, even from fasting, but also being animal based. So like, I don't really eat any thing that is, well, I eat some fruits and stuff like that and honey. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Not that much vegetables, lots of like, avocados, olives, because they're still fruits. But in any case, right. So both with fasting and with an animal-based diet, or when I went full carnivore, my sense of smell just took like, 5 steps upwards. Like you become one of the first thing. Aware. Exactly. And that's that hyper awareness, is because we do so much with our olfactory sense, the scientific technical term for your ability to smell, which carries a lot of information. We're really dumbed down to that, right? Desensitized as usual because of different reasons. But you get that back. Your eyesight improves, your hearing improves, your sensitivity to your environment improves, all so that you could be a better hunter and get your meal. Right? And that's also something like, as the fast goes on, as you said, the sympathetic system can only be on for that long. Right. And the organisms of the body and all the biofeedback will tell you, and that's another point I'll go into in a second, but it will tell you like, hey, like, we haven't caught anything, but if we're going to continue to survive, we can't have this energy expenditure. Like, you need to chill down, right? Because we're just kind of hoping at this point that something will fall in your mouth. Like, the energy expenditure time is over, right? You had your, 3 to 5 days opening a window, after that, your system's like, nope, no, we're
Exactly.
not doing this stuff anymore. So it's super fascinating. And then a reason why I'm such a huge proponent of fasting as well, and that what that Theo said is like your biofeedback. So your ability to understand this experience.
Yes.
That's when you said that about energy expenditure and conservation, like that just kind of, wow. Right.
Yeah.
So people, again, like you're so disconnected and desensitized to your own biofeedback because a lot of that messaging is really, really bad and completely fucked up.
Yes.
It's just not working. But when you fast, all of these things come back, right? What
Yes.
we call intuition to a certain degree and instincts and stuff like that. That stuff has never been gone. It's just that you don't use these connections, and the information that comes from these connections is completely distorted, right? So
Yes.
when you come back into that, it gives you another additional element of internal information that you otherwise wouldn't have had, right? So that's kind of like the brunt of mechanisms running in the background that I wanted to highlight for people.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like I realized learning about all this, not even fasting only, but how modern people are not like in tune with themselves, like we've been corrupted kind of, so that we're supposed to be able to know so much about, I'm feeling like this means this, without even thinking about it. But we've been like I call it that we've been spoiled again with everything, this like with the food, the shelter, everything. Like most people would think, for instance, with food, even someone who isn't like I have to eat all the time, but many people would think that, obviously if I don't get to eat, I'll be tired, and I won't be able to focus and so. And maybe if your hormones are completely dysregulated and you're a food addict, maybe that's true to a certain extent, but it does, like you just explained, Sim, it does make sense that, why would you lose all your energy when you need to go and get more, if you still have resources? It actually makes sense that you get more focused and like more motivated. And if you think about it again, when you just eat, then it makes sense that, now I've gotten what I need. I'm comfortable now. I don't have to pay attention as much now. Let's just chill and digest this food. So
yeah, 100%, man. And it's like, it's funny because it kind of comes up on Instagram sometimes, like, how is it that we're the only species that doesn't know how to eat? It's not like we're not. It's just that you've been educated first, right? Or sorry, the education actually came second. It already started in your mother's womb, right? If she's eating poorly, your dopamine receptors and all these other like neurohormones, gut hormones, all that other stuff, like the gut bacteria, will have been altered according to what she ate. So if she's eating junk food, then the only thing your system knows, right, because that's the only information it has gotten, is we want this. Yes. Because everything adapts to that on the bacteria level, all the other stuff in the gut, the brain, dopamine, like those reward systems. It's not just dopamine, but a part of it, right? The organs. So that's the problem. Like this thing, it's a concept called nutritional wisdom or intuitive nutritional wisdom. We all have that. It's just like, you just don't use it because you don't have access to it, because you've never been in a position where you needed to use it. And your physiology has been altered to such a degree, right, through all these hyperpalatable foods and bacterial changes and neurological changes, that you can't differentiate any of this. Like the only thing your system wants, between quotations, or is craving, is junk food, right? And that's the only thing you know. So that it's just trying to adapt to the most dominant information, which is exactly that. So if you want to have nutritional wisdom, right, intuitively, then you need to move away from all of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of these things that it's easier said than done, but right, we both have our own path and experiences with that. Fasting is a great tool to get into that. So that's You don't need to do a week per se, right? But
no. No, like I generally recommend the 72-hour fast. Like it's kind of my favorite fast. Now, like having done these longer ones, again, it's like you do get things out of them that you don't get from a shorter, but also, you know, it takes more time. It gets harder to be productive at the end and stuff like this. So the 72-hour fast I like to recommend because it's, to most people, it's still a huge thing to do. And you will absolutely have a lot of, it's enough to have a good effect on you. And so when the people I coach and we try to get rid of the food addiction, we don't go, if it wouldn't be like a very overweight person, we don't go longer than 72 hours. So and also, I guess, you know, I think most people actually could be fine in any situation doing a fast like this. But of course, it could be a good idea to start out when you know that you don't have, you know, you don't have to work or whatever, take a weekend or something.
Yeah, totally. Like lower the threshold to do it, right? And that's also speaking of coaching, right? So seeing that you are a coach and you do the personal training, but how did you